Hey, this is Matt with Let's Talk Music. I'm here with Brad from Nervous Eaters, and they are based out of Boston, correct?
Correct, Boston, Massachusetts.
So, Boston, man, a lot of history out there as far as bands.
Absolutely. I mean, you go back to, well, I mean, there's a lot of jazz musicians that came out of Boston. Johnny Hodges, from Duke Ellington's band. And I mean, just tons of great musicians that have come out of this area. But as far as rock and roll goes, Barry and the Remains, The Lost, Beacon Street Union,
Hmm.
uh, The Ultimate Spinach, which was a psychedelic band in the 60s, which actually Steve Cataldo, the singer, songwriter, band leader of the Nervous Eaters, was an original member in that group.
Oh, okay.
He was a kid, yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, you guys have been around for some time, right?
Yeah, the Eaters have been around, since 73, 74, probably.
Hmm.
They were actually called the Rhythm Assholes before they were called the Nervous Eaters. And they changed their name after they were rehearsing at Jeff Wilkinson. God rest his soul, he's passed away now, but he was the original drummer in the Eaters, and they were rehearsing at his mother's house. And they'd run upstairs. She was always making cookies for him and sandwiches, and so they'd gobble down their food, to get back downstairs to play because all they really wanted to do was play. But she was on them like, "You got to eat." So she goes, "You boys are a bunch of nervous eaters." And they're like, "Bingo, that's a good name for a group." So it stuck.
Right, right. So it was punk new wave that you guys kind of got into right off the rip, right?
Yeah, anybody that really knows anything about the Eaters or the Real Kids too, they were another great Boston band. The Eaters are a rock and roll band. They
Okay.
just happened to be in that time period when, which was, I don't know how old you are, Matt, but I'm 65, and
Yeah.
everybody else in the group is a little bit older. So that was kind of our time. You know what I
Right.
mean? When the Ramones happened, and the Pistols happened, and the Clash, and the Jam, and the Buzzcocks, and all those great bands. So the theaters were, but Steve is he's a deep guy, man. He's influenced by a lot of different things. A
Hmm.
lot of American music, like the Chess Catalog, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson, and I'll tell you a story a little later if you have any other questions first. But it's in the British Invasion stuff, but Steve's a big Kinks, Stones, Beatles, Dave Clark Five, Animals, all that stuff,
Okay.
as well as the punk element found its way in because we were all younger guys then, and so that was an exciting time for music because it was changing and it needed to change.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about the new single, "Wild Eyes." Tell me,
Sure.
tell me all about that. I mean, I dug the song. I got the press release, checked it out, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I'd like to do an interview with these guys. And be
Yeah,
honest, it was
thank you.
the first thing that I had heard from you because I mean, I just I'm out here in Ohio, man. We got our local stuff and whatever, and then we got bands that come through. But I mean, it just yeah, I mean, I liked it, and then I started reading the press release. I'm like, man, these guys are legit, and so yeah,
We're
just
all I
what's
mean, the
what?
legacy of the group is very deep. I mean, the drummer
Yes.
David McLean was in Willie Alexander and the Boom Boom Band in the mid '70s. They were signed on MCA for two records. The other guitar player Adam Sherman was in Private Lightning. They were on A&M. That was his own group in the late '70s, early '80s. And I played in Ministry. A long list of groups. I mean, I played in over 200 release recordings myself. I've been a full time bass player since '75.
Ministry, as
So
in like Al Jorgensen's ministry.
that's right.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
I'm on the With Sympathy record and Twitch, those two records, and I was with the band for 3 years during that time.
Oh.
So it's interesting because I live in Boston. Ministry was here recording at the Car Studio at Synchro Sound, and Vince Ely from the Psychedelic Furs and Ian Taylor, who was engineering the record, were out seeing bands. And they happened to see the band I was playing in that night, and they were actually hitting on my girlfriend. I was getting kind of pissed off, and I walked over and I was like, "What's going on, fellas?" And they're like, pretty good bass player, man. We're doing a record over Synchro. You want to come over and do a couple songs?" So I did, and then, long story short, I ended up joining the group for about 3 years. But yeah. So anyway, getting back to Wild Eyes, the Eaters, it's a veteran group of guys, and
Mm.
Steve is. he's a legitimate artist, man. That's all I can say about him is he's never stopped.
Right.
He's never stopped. I mean, I did a stint with him in the 80s. I was in the Eaters in 86 to 88.
Hmm.
And you can see some of that stuff on YouTube, me playing with him then. And, you know, before I joined his band then, he said to me, "You got to play my blues band, man, before, uh, you get to audition for the Eaters." And so he gave me a tape of a bunch of chess stuff, Sonny Boy, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy, all that stuff. And he's a legitimate blues guy. I mean, he's into that stuff.
Right.
And I ended up actually having a long career in blues myself. I played in Duke Robillard's band for 12 years. I played in Roomful of Blues. I played with James Cotton, Otis Clay, Billy Boy Arnold, Jimmy Vaughn, Susan Tedeschi. I mean, I have a long, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you, it's,
A long
65 years old.
resume. Right.
You get around. But the first time I played with Hubert Sumlin, was fortunate enough to play with him a number of times before he died, was with Steve.
Hmm.
I mean, Steve hooked up with all those guys, and he knew those cats. So, that's just a little history. But as the band, as there's been many incarnations of the Eaters. A lot of alumni through the years. And after I left in '88, I always stayed in touch with Steve. Not real regularly, but usually at least a couple times a year. And every once in a while, I'd go see him play if I wasn't on the road.
Hmm.
And I'd given my notice to Duke Robillard's band in 2020, right before the pandemic, right before the shutdown. It was like February 2020. And
Right.
Steve called me, he was always sending me all the songs he was writing. He was always sending me demos, song demos. I mean, you can see all these CDs. I mean, I have probably 10,000 titles
Oh
on CD.
wow.
And, I probably have like 50 CDs from Steve of CDRs that he made me of songs that he's written. I mean, he is writing. He's like Dylan or any other great writer. I mean, he's constantly writing songs. They're not all great. He'll be the first one to tell you that.
Hmm.
Every 4 or 5 songs you get a gem like Wild Eyes.
Right.
So he called me up and he goes, "Hey man, my bass player left, and I just given my notice, and the next thing you know, I'm working with him again." And we did one gig, and then the world shut down. But we kept rehearsing, and we went in and did a demo. And Steve Berkowitz, who was the head of Sony Legacy, he was a very good friend of ours. He worked for Lookout Management, which managed the Cars and Ministry,
Okay.
and he's from Boston. So he was actually the road manager for the Boom Boom Band when David was in the group in the '70s. And he went on to have this illustrious career in the industry, and he's a good friend of ours. And so he was the first guy I sent the tunes to. I said, "You should listen to these." And within 24 hours, we had a deal with Stephen Van Zandt on his label. He just
Nice.
he said, "I think this is a really good match for you. You should check these guys out." And he loved it. And so yeah, so Wild Eyes is the first song that's released. They're releasing 5 singles before the album drops in November.
Hmm.
And you know, we're working our tails off doing things like this with you, Matt. Just talking to people and having conversations and all that. So
So that album is called Monsters and Angels, correct?
yes,
Okay. And you say November, so 5 more singles.
four more,
That's oh, one more,
four, no, 4 more.
4 more.
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, that's yeah. I mean, that's pumping them out there. So
yeah, yeah. The next one's dropping the end of August, which is going to be another coolest song in the world. You know how he does that on his underground garage, which means you get played like every 4 hours for a week, and then you go
oh,
into heavy rotation. Like right now, we're still getting played 4 times a day on the
mm-hmm.
underground garage, which has really been good, obviously for us. And the next song is the same, and then there's another song that's after that he really digs, but it's not going to get that much attention, but it'll still get played. Yeah, so they're really trying to build it up, and you know, are you a musician, Matt?
No, no. I'm
Oh,
just a fan of music. I would just say more of a super fan. I love music. The reason that I started doing this is because I was always talking to my wife about different things about music, and she's like, you know, I'm not really. She said, I'm not trying to buy or be mean or anything. She says, but I'm not into music like you are. You come to me with like all these bands and these names and these, blah blah blah, and she's like, why don't you start a blog or something? And I was like, okay, well that sounds good. So then I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm the kind of guy that I'm gonna go big. So I started doing interviews and stuff, and ever since uh I think you're gonna be my 70th interview, but in the past few months I've been nailed. I mean, I started it about a year ago, and I was did a couple here and there, and then I had a couple publicists that I don't know how they got my name or got in touch with me, but they got a hold of me, and just like your publicist, I had no idea. One day I've got like 5 emails from Earshot Media, and I'm like, well, who is this? So I'm getting a little bit of recognition in that area, and yeah, so they've been loading me up with them, and I've talked to, I just did one right before you. I've been getting a lot of people that are of all types of different music. I did my first rap artist not too long ago. I've done singer songwriters, rock bands, bands out of Canada, bands out of India. It's been awesome.
Well, thank you so much for doing what you're doing because, as you know, I mean, I've been doing this since I said since '75, and
Mhm.
I had some amazing deals with major labels with bands during the '90s and '80s when there was still tour support, big advances, real A&R guys who actually signed a group because they dug them and they were sticking with them for 2 or 3 records anyway.
Right.
And now that's all gone.
Hmm.
It doesn't exist anymore. So it's up to people that love rock music, like you and me, and because I'm a fan too. I'm a
Right.
fan first and foremost. I mean, I'm a professional musician, full time guy, but I love music and I listen to it all the time. And I'm a completist. If there's an act that I like, I have to have everything they ever put out,
I got you.
demos and everything.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I tell you, what I've discussed with a few other artists is something that I'm loving is vinyl making a comeback.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So my wife got me a record player for Christmas, and just little box, built-in speakers. And it's like I've told other people, with the built-in speakers, it sounds like the authentic back in the day records where you
When you
got the
were a kid.
crackling and popping and whatnot, and then you put it on your Bluetooth speaker, you got a little more modern sound to it. But yeah, I love vinyl. I loved hell, man. I even liked 8 tracks. I don't think those ever make a comeback, but
CDs are starting to make a comeback again. They were almost on the way out. I
hmm
mean, you know, is this is just an audio podcast, right? Or do you?
actually, what it is it's I record the interview and then I edit it and put it up on YouTube.
Oh, as just audio or with the video as well?
It's audio and video.
Oh, cool. All right, everybody, how you doing out there? So, you know, we really are trying to keep the hard copy alive, and
Hmm.
Van Sant believes in that. I mean, our first Wild Eyes is released on red vinyl as a 45,
Oh, okay.
with the original version of Loretta from 1976 as the B-side remastered. So, it's a pretty cool. Hey, give me 1 second, man. I'll be right back. I'll
Okay.
grab one. I should have one. Give me 1 second.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, and and of course, if you're really a music fan like me, you love stuff like that.
Yes.
Red vinyl. I mean, it just takes you back to the day, like I mean, in the early and mid '70s, late '70s, I probably had more 45s than I did when I was a kid because everybody, the Buzzcocks, X-Ray Specs, the Ramones, the Pistols, the Clash, the Jam, and then all the pop bands from the states like the Shoes and you know the DBs. I mean, everybody was putting out 45s.
Right.
So cool. you know. So anyway, I'm glad that you talked about vinyl, and because I think it's important. If I have one thing to say to our fans, that support the Nervous Eaters, is please buy a record.
Right.
I mean, if you want to stream it, whatever. I mean, that's everybody's doing that now, but what we're trying to do is and it's not just for our benefit. I mean, believe me, it's more about just keeping the hard copy alive
Right.
and keeping that going. You know.
Well, and it was, I mean, I spoke with another band about that, and he said, he goes, we're going to press some vinyl. He says, we're already on the streaming platforms, blah, 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 but we're going to press some vinyl. And he says, it's just nice to be able to hold something tangible in your hands and say, I made this.
Absolutely.
And I was like, yeah, I can understand that. Cause I mean, it is nice to just pull it out and kind of blow the dust off of it or whatever and throw it on the record player and listen to it. I mean, when she bought that thing, man, I was outside with it, playing it and everything else, just, yeah, I'd love it. But I mean, I haven't really been able to get it out recently because I've been, jam packed with interviews and, I got a regular day job. So, but no, I mean, this is more of the reason I call this Let's Talk Music is because, we'll talk a little bit about, your single, your band, your album. But what I enjoy most about it, and especially with people like yourself that has such a long resume, is, to just talk music. That's why I call it Let's Talk Music, because I mean it's nice to be able to talk to somebody else that has the same passion and interest in music as myself.
It's my life. It's always
Yes.
been my life. I mean, since February, I've realized it more now as I've gotten older. I didn't think about it for many, many decades, but now it's really clear to me that February 9th, 1964 was the day. And I knew when I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, I was 7 years old. I just knew that was it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that. And my brother was the same way. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he was a full-time guy too, a full-time artist. Besides being a musician, he was a filmmaker, photographer, just all around really, really great artist. But yeah, I mean, and I've never stopped. You know what I mean? I still practice a lot. You know, I play acoustic bass as well as electric bass. I play a lot of different genres of music, and I'm a full-time student. I
Right.
mean, it's really important, to as an artist, to keep a beginner's mind because that keeps you humble, and it also keeps things fresh and your desire to learn because you're not going to learn it all in this lifetime. But
Right.
we just do the best we can, and it's one of the reasons why I have so much admiration for Steve Cataldo, the singer for the Eaters, is because he's just constantly working on his skill set as a
Mm-hmm.
songwriter, writing,
Yeah, and
writing,
I
writing.
mean that's awesome. I mean, a lot of, I mean, the band that I was just speaking with before you, I told him, I said, the world is already a shitty enough place, but could you imagine it without music? And
Uh,
the guy was like, man, I don't even know what I would do, And I mean, it's with music, it's just something that you feel, I think. It's not just like listening to it. Like I mean, it's such a played out song, but it's one of my favorite songs ever is Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Huge Journey fan. And it's still, there's days that when that comes on the radio or, I've got it downloaded on my phone, I just, hit it, that I'll get goosebumps when I hear that, those opening chords. I mean, it's just, I think it is for me. I don't only just hear it, but I feel it, and I like to listen really carefully to the lyrics and that say, okay, this is what I'm getting from it. And then, when I get to talk to the artists that made it, they're like, yeah, that's an interpretation of it, or that's exactly what we meant, and it just kind of, it makes me feel, I guess, kind of cool because I'm connecting in that way with them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, that song is, I mean, the lyrics in that tune are small town America all the way
Hmm.
across the board. I mean, it's just, about a girl who's growing up, in this country, or you can look at it as a guy, however you want. But the whole thing is just don't lose hope,
Right.
and we need that more than ever right now.
Oh
But
yeah.
all great songs. Like I'll take Tom Petty for example, because I think he's one of the greatest songwriters to ever come out of this country. I mean, I
Mhm.
just love his writing, and he is sorely missed. That guy never made a bad record. But his tunes, are very open to just like any good song. You like Matt listens to it and he goes, "Oh man, this is exactly how my life was."
Right.
You see it as a certain so universal interpretation is what good songs are all about. That you take them personally, but what the writer had in mind might not be exactly what how you're interpreting it.
Hmm.
But the writer's happy that you're interpreting it personally, because
Right.
that's the whole idea of a good song. So
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on Tom Petty. I love a lot of his old, older stuff. Like when I was growing up, oh man,
Candy.
you got lucky, and all those were popping out on MTV. So I was born in '76. So, I was what, 5 or 6 when MTV came out. And man, I was glued to the TV like it was Saturday morning cartoons. I loved it. I mean, and that's how I, was able to experience a lot of the bands that were coming out, like, the Clash, and just different musicians from all genres that they were playing. And I would sit there and I'd listen to the MTV news and that stuff. It was like my brain was a sponge for that kind of stuff. Like, I'll be in my classroom with my teacher and she's talking about algebra and I'm like, huh? But I'm listening to these people talk about, well, this person did this and, blah, blah, blah. And it's sunk. And it's like, that's what my mom used to tell me all the time. She says, Matthew, if you paid as much attention to school as you did music, you'd be a straight A student.
Well, you love the music. What do you do for a job now?
I'm actually a truck driver. Yeah, locally, I did 14 and a half years on the road, and then I've been local for like the last 10. So,
You drove a big rig for a while?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was all over the country.
Wow.
Yep.
Tough times now, man, with the price of diesels.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have on-site diesel, so we get a bulk discount, but it pays the bills.
Yeah, good, man.
So, I mean, honestly, I would love for this to go somewhere. I'm trying different avenues as far as like, promoting some of the local talent that I talk to. Well, not really local, but independent talent that I talk to. I want to start a podcast in probably late September, early October, where like maybe 35 or 40 minutes of it is just playing music from these independent artists, because, with independence, you don't have to have all the copyright crap and this and that. And it also allows their music to be heard on a different platform. So, I'm into, helping as many bands as I can, because I mean, like I said, I've talked to, I'd say out of those interviews, probably the last 55 have been just independent artists that I'm like, wow, man, how are you guys not bigger than what you are? You
Well,
know?
I mean, one of the reasons is the market is saturated.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much music out there now. I
Oh
mean, when
yeah.
I was a kid coming up, it wasn't like that, and now it's like, with the home studios and everybody being able to make records at home and everything, it's very competitive. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that's good, I mean, whatever. I'm glad people are playing music, and I encourage young people. When I talk to younger people, I'm always try to help people out, and give them an encouraging word. But what else do you want to talk about as far as the eaters go?
Uh,
Any questions?
I seen you guys are gonna be playing some shows out there in Massachusetts and stuff. Any plans of making it out this way?
We'd love to. I mean, it's at this point in time, Matt. It's all based on how the record's going to do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Wild Eyes is coming out of the gate strong. and we'll see if the songs that come out after continue to go in a forward motion. But we need to get an agent and try to get. I mean, for us to, we're not going to get in the van and go out and get 2 hotel rooms for 6 guys, and
Right.
we're not doing that. You know what I mean? It's like, because all of us have experienced tour buses and all that stuff, and it's just, we're older now, and it's not that we have to have a tour bus, but it, you know, it, we got if we go out, we got to make a living at it. I mean, I'm a full time guy. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
make a living playing bass. So, and right now, the Eaters are a full time job with less than part time pay, because it's just a lot of work trying to break the group. But we're all happy to do it because we believe in the band, and we'd like to see more people embrace it, and more people hear it.
Right.
We feel strongly that if people do, it's a really strong live band, really strong,
Okay.
and everybody that sees us digs it. So it's just a matter of getting an agent, that believes in us enough that they're going to get behind us and maybe get us an opening slot on some cool tours. Um, you know, because going out, and playing. I mean, I love playing clubs. Three, four,
Right.
500 seat clubs. That's a blast. But you got to sell seats. I mean, you got to sell tickets, man. I mean, you can't get a guarantee unless people know that you're going to come in there and you're going to sell the room for them.
Right. Right.
So it's not easy.
Yeah, I mean it is tough. I know I got friends that are in bands that have talked about that situation, but like I said, I dig your sound. I'm definitely gonna have to dig into the archives a little bit and check out some of the older stuff that you was talking about. And not just you, but I mean most of the bands that I do talk to, I've not heard of, and because of these publicists that I'm working with, I'm like, again, they're just opening me up to a whole different world, and I'm just like, man, it's awesome. So I would love to catch you guys, catch a show, out here, or maybe somewhere close, because I think that with the history that you guys have, you guys would be an awesome live band.
It really is. I mean, we have a good show. So I mean, the band rocks. It's a real rock and roll band, and
Right.
you know, so yeah. I mean, let's stay in touch. I mean, if you see we're playing out that way, you got my email, and you got the publicist's email. Just shoot us a message and say, hey man, I'd like to come to the gig. We'll put you on the list.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be awesome. I said,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
I really did, like I said, dig Wild Eyes, and I'm looking forward to checking out some more of your music.
Cool. Yeah, with the record, I mean, the band did a number of like 3 or 4 independent 45s in the 70s, and then got signed to Elektra and did a record that uh, Harry Maslin produced it, who produced Station to Station by Bowie and
Hmm.
other big records. And he kind of turned the band a little soft. Really I wasn't in the group then, but it was a real disappointment to the fans here back home. I mean, the Nervous Eaters are a legendary band in Boston. I mean, because
Right.
they've been for so long, and they really were very integral in the the rock and roll movement starting and going over to the punk movement, and they were one of the best live bands around here. So they did that record for Elektra. Then they stayed together for a few more years, broke up. Steve did some other things. Then they got back together around 1980, and they signed with Ace of Hearts Records. Have you ever heard of Ace of Hearts?
No, sir.
It's a label out of Boston that had Mission of Burma, The Liars, The Neighborhoods, The Classic Ruins. These were all really popular bands around here, and fairly popular nationally as well. Uh,
Hmm.
and so the Eaters did a record for Ace of Hearts called Hot Steel and Acid. You want to check that record out. It's
What's it
online.
called?
Hot Steel and Acid.
Okay. Okay.
Hot Steel and Acid. Yeah, if that's a good record to check out. And then Steve did a bunch of independent stuff between that record and like maybe 3 independent albums between Hot Steel and Acid and Monsters and Angels.
Hmm.
But
Awesome.
yeah, man. So
Okay, Brad. Well, I appreciate your time, and
yeah, yours, man.
I tell you what, it's nice to talk to a seasoned veteran. How's that? Because I talked to another guy. You ever heard of Dan Siddell?
What's the name?
Dan Siddell.
I don't think so. Who's he
He,
play?
he's West Coast. He was part of that punk movement out there. Like he was on stage with Wendy O. Williams and stuff like that. So
Is he in the Plasmatics? Or are you open for him?
I'm not sure if he was or not.
Okay.
So, but I know he's a really cool guy. Older gentleman, and it was great to talk to him and great to talk to you because I mean it is nice that a lot of the bands I talk to are younger guys, and they're, oh, we know we've played here, done this, we've done this since high school, like 5-6 years ago, and then I talk to you guys and you like talk about the '60s and '70s, and honestly, I feel like I should have been a teenager at that point in time, man, because I would have loved to have been alive back then.
Yeah.
'Cause some of the greatest music in history was put out back then.
Oh man. I mean, I'm a huge fan of '60s Southern soul. I mean, for an electric bass player, I mean, Stax, High Records, Muscle Shoals, Motown. I mean, that stuff is unbeatable. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as just, yeah. I mean, it's music was a different thing then. With kudos to MTV, and I'm glad it happened because it did help a lot of people and break a lot of bands. But it was kind of the beginning of the end when that happened because it took away a lot of imagination and creativity for us. Because when I
Okay.
was a kid, we didn't even know what the bands looked like. We didn't know what kind of equipment they had. We had their records. We knew every word of the liner notes, and we bought tickets, and and that's how it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, and now, and especially now with social media is it's good for a lot of things. The internet's good for a lot of things, but it's so instantaneous now. And I talk to a lot of kids; they don't have the attention span to listen to a whole record,
Right. Right.
sit down and listen to an album. You know what I mean? And it's
Oh
sad
yeah.
to me. It's sad. It's important to because I mean, and I find myself doing it with
Mm-hmm.
it because you can get information so quick now, and
Mm-hmm.
your patience is like you have less patience for things, and whatever. But hey, we just keep rolling, Matt. That's all. You know what I mean? We
Yes,
do it.
sir.
We do it because we love it, right? You're here because you love it. I'm here because I love it. We help each other out. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
sir.
And I really appreciate what you're doing
Hey,
because
man. I'm
you know
I'm I'm glad to hear that.
it helps us. And
Right.
talking to somebody else that loves music as much as me makes me feel good and makes me know that we can do this. We can all do this together. You know, bring the music to the people, get the word out there. So
Oh yeah, man. You're an awesome dude, Brad. I love your enthusiasm and your spirit, man.
well, we got to have it. I mean,
Yes, sir.
what else are we doing here? It's like time is short on this planet. As
Very true.
I've gotten older, I've witnessed it more and more and more. And it's just important that we just keep going.
Yes, sir.
So
All right, man. Well, I will keep in touch. In the meantime, I will check out you said Hot Steel and Acid.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna, I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
check that out, and I'm gonna check out some of the older tunes, and get in touch with you, and maybe just say, hey, I dug it.
Cool. So you have my personal email?
I don't believe that I do,
Write it
but
down.
if you want, my email is rock music.
Here, let me. I'm gonna type it out right now while I'm talking to you. You're editing this anyway, so this is okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so rock music, ROCK,
Uh-huh.
music,
And the letter N,
letter N.
more,
What is it?
uh, more. So it's rock music and more.
Oh, MORE after N.
Yep. At gmail.com.
Okay, so ROCKMUSICNMORE at gmail.com.
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna shoot this out to you as soon as we get off the horn here.
All right, man. Well, I look forward to it. And like I said, I'll check that stuff out and hit you up and let you know what I thought.
Cool, cool. And after you edit this and you get ready to, when are you gonna air it? Do you think? When will it go live?
I'm probably gonna work on it tomorrow, because gotta get to bed here soon for work. But I've got 4 of them to do tomorrow, so I'm probably gonna just get them all done and get them up tomorrow. Probably mid afternoon, late evening.
Can you shoot me a link to the edited final one? That's
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
put it on YouTube. Great.
yeah,
Do you have your own channel on YouTube?
yes.
And what's it called?
Let's talk music.
Oh, Let's Talk Music. Okay, cool. That's
Hmm.
right. You told me that.
Yeah, it was Maddie 76, which is just kind of a nickname I use. The year I was born and a Y at the end of my name. But my son's fiance was like, I love your content, but your social media presence isn't, real strong, and that's going to help you get more subscribers and viewers. So, one of her suggestions was, change it to something like, Let's Talk Music or something like that, so it's easier to find.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, so I changed it, and I mean, I've gotten a few extra subscribers and quite a few views. So yeah, she was
Huge.
helpful.
Great. Yeah, the young
So,
people know. They're the
yes,
ones.
they do.
They're the ones to talk to about TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's beyond me. Anyway, brother. All right. Well, you have a good night, Matt, and thank you so much for having us on your show. And we really appreciate the support, and we will appreciate the continued support.
No problem, man. Thank you for being on.
Okay, Matt. Take care. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Bye bye now.